Well, there's no denying it now. We are well into the month of October. It is October 9th, 2020 here at Cord Cutting Weekly, and we thank you all for tuning in. And if you're new to this show or to the channel in general, well, welcome. This is where we wrap up the past week in cord cutting and streaming news. And for this week, we're going to talk about Netflix tweaking its still watching feature, a new Roku survey that shows just how much we've all been streaming lately, pre-Prime Day deals, and more. But first, of course, please do consider clicking those handy like and subscribe buttons down below. You'd be joining a growing and awesome group, and you'd be supporting our efforts to bring you even more video content in the future. But we've got some news to talk about, so let's get on with that, starting with Netflix. Okay, so in Netflix news, we're hearing reports that the streaming service is testing out some new flexibility with its famous, or perhaps infamous, still watching feature. There are confirmed reports that Netflix is testing out a version of that feature that gives users a few more options to choose from. For those that are part of this test, the "Are you still watching?" prompt is followed by options like "Ask again later," "Play without asking again," and "I'm done." If you select the Ask Again Later option, the prompt will pop back up just like it does for most users, but choosing the Play Without Asking Again option means you can keep binge watching uninterrupted. And I'm sure lots of folks might welcome that option, but I would suggest keeping an eye on those data caps in the future if you decide to go that route. Of course, I'm just one person. What does everyone else out there think of the option to turn off the still watching pop-up? Feel free to comment down below. And that's not the only news this week. The streaming service announced it's going to start grouping some categories together in what it's calling the New and Popular tab. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because Netflix started testing this back in April, but we're starting to see the new option rolled out to connected TVs now. The New and Popular tab, as you might have guessed by now, will indeed include new shows and movies, as well as current hits via a top 10 row. Beyond those, you'll also see sections like Coming Soon and a new Worth the Wait row. That Worth the Wait option offers teases to content that's coming to Netflix in the next couple of weeks to the next year. It's meant to encourage folks to stay with the service so they don't miss out on these new shows and movies when they arrive. So I guess you could consider this a Please Don't Leave Us row if that helps. In any case, if you've started to see the New and Popular tab in your Netflix app, feel free to comment down below with your thoughts on the content on offer and whether or not those worth the wait options do indeed seem worth the wait. In video download news, we're starting to finally see a number of Disney films available in up to 4K HDR through Apple's iTunes storefront. Now, Apple has been offering 4K downloads for years now and supports the resolution via its Apple TV 4K, but Disney's various franchises have been conspicuously absent. Until now, if you wanted to rent or buy, say, Avengers Endgame through Apple's iTunes ecosystem, you were limited to 1080p resolution at best. Well, we're starting to see support for up to 4K with both Dolby Vision HDR and Dolby Atmos support in a number of Disney films. That collection also includes the company's Pixar, Star Wars, and Marvel properties. In fact, if you visit iTunes this week, you might see Marvel Cinematic Universe films tagged with the now available in 4K HDR. And we're also starting to see reports that those who have purchased HD versions or 1080p versions of these films may be eligible for a free upgrade. So if you've picked one of these up in the past via iTunes, I'd recommend looking into that offer. Of course, many of these films have been available in 4K with HDR support via Disney's own streaming service, Disney+, but in some cases, iTunes can reportedly offer up higher bit rates, which could lead to better video quality overall. Of course, if video quality is very important to you, you might also want to look into 4K Blu-rays as well, but in any case, it's nice to see some of Disney's properties finally getting Ultra HD options through Apple's ecosystem. Moving on to service providers, AT&T announced that as of October 1st, it would no longer sell DSL internet service. The company announced it would stop taking new orders for DSL service, and existing customers would not be able to make changes to the speeds of the current service or take it with them if they move. The company said it's shifting more of its focus toward technologies like fiber and wireless instead of what it calls outdated services like DSL. And the move itself isn't exactly surprising. Many ISPs of late have been phasing out DSL service in favor of alternatives that can offer up higher speeds. And as of the second quarter of this year, AT&T said around 500,000 customers were still using its DSL service, often because that was the only available option in their area. AT&T says it's promoting fixed wireless as an option in rural areas with limited availability, and that service starts around $50 per month. Still, there is concern that no longer selling DSL will make things harder in rural areas where options like fiber or fixed wireless aren't readily available. While existing customers will continue receiving DSL service, it'll be interesting to see how this will affect those, say, moving into these rural areas for the first time and looking for new service. Meanwhile, CBS has announced a new rebranding effort to help stand out in a crowded field of competitors. One of the key changes here is renaming CBS Television Studios to just CBS Studios. Now that might seem a subtle tweak, but the company says it's about more accurately reflecting all the work the studio is doing for broadcast, cable, streaming, and other platforms. Elsewhere, expect to see various bits of content tagged with CBS Original, CBS News, CBS Sports, etc. They'll also be leaning heavily on that familiar CBS Eye for some new logos and animation, and there's even a new 5-note audio melody that you'll start hearing during primetime programming on CBS. Of course, this move follows a recent announcement that CBS All Access is getting rebranded to become Paramount Plus, and it's pretty clear that parent company Viacom-CBS is working to reorganize and leverage the brand recognition at its disposal. And of course, when you start hearing that new CBS melody or catch those updated logos and graphics, feel free to let us know what you think in the comment section down below. In online shopping news, if you haven't heard by now, Amazon's annual Prime Day event is set for next week, October 13th and 14th. And we've been keeping an eye on the mega retailer as it offers up some pretty significant deals leading up to the main event. And of course, as the actual Prime Day sales start flowing, Cord Cutters News will be working hard to highlight some of the best cord cutting and streaming deals available. In Roku news, the company announced that its free streaming service, which goes by the name the Roku Channel, is now available on Amazon's line of Fire TV devices, and that includes Fire TV streaming devices, smart TVs, and soundbars here in the US. That rollout started this week, so you should be able to download the Roku Channel through a supported Fire TV device right now if you'd like. In fact, the company says you can search for it just by asking Alexa, which I'm not going to demonstrate because I don't want to trigger anyone's Alexa. You're welcome. In any case, Roku points out that its free streaming service offers over 100,000 free ad-supported movies and TV episodes and over 100 live and linear channels. And this news follows last week's announcement of a standalone Roku Channel app that lets mobile users access free and premium content on the go. So it's pretty clear the company is working to draw new Roku users in by expanding beyond its own line of streaming devices. And if you've used the Roku Channel app or via a Fire TV device, feel free to let us know what you think of the experience down below. Speaking of Roku, the company also shared the results of its holiday consumer shopping survey. If you haven't heard of this report before, it's something that Roku does in partnership with the Harris Poll. And while it gives advertisers more info about potential target audiences, there's also some interesting bits of info for consumers as well. For one, and this may not surprise you, the study indicates that the average American now says they stream more than they watch traditional TV. Again, that's probably not a shocking stat, especially considering how much streaming has skyrocketed during the pandemic. Other discoveries include 56% of cord cutters saying they left pay TV because of the cost, and Roku users reported saving around $75 per month after dropping those pay TV services. We also appear to be spending more time streaming this year. Overall, those surveyed reported streaming time is up 19% compared to 2019. And more than 3/4 of the more than 2,000 people surveyed said they have at least 2 streaming service subscriptions, and nearly half of them said they had 3 or more. Overall, it's an interesting look at how streaming has accelerated this year and where we could be headed for in the future. Which leads me to ask, how have your streaming habits changed this year? A lot more streaming? Probably. Have you added a bunch of new services to keep you entertained? You know where to let us know. And that about wraps up another week here at Cord Cutting Weekly. As always, we thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time visiting our channel and you like what you've seen so far, please do consider clicking those like and subscribe buttons down below. They really do help out. On this channel, Jess hosts a live Q&A session with our subscribers on Wednesdays, and we explore different topics in our Thursday topical deep dives, including this week's review of the Air TV Anywhere. And of course, on Fridays, we wrap up the past week in cord cutting streaming news right here on Cord Cutting Weekly. Having said that, however, as a programming note, I will actually be out next Friday, so we won't have a video wrap-up next week. Keep your eye on our YouTube community posts, however, where we'll still round up the week's biggest cord-cutting and streaming news. And of course, don't forget we have a news website, cordcuttersnews.com, where you can stay up to date on all the latest updates and breaking news. For now, though, my name's Philip Palermo. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you all again soon. Take care.